Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the year 2145, humanity had unlocked the secrets of the stars. They had established colonies on distant planets, mastered faster-than-light travel, and sent probes into the far reaches of the galaxy. But despite their technological advancements, there was one frontier they had yet to fully explore: the mind. The human mind, with its intricate webs of thoughts, emotions, and consciousness, was a vast, untamed space. And Irene Hargrave, a brilliant scientist with a knack for the impossible, was about to change that. Irene had always been a pioneer. She had a reputation for thinking beyond the boundaries of conventional science, blending fields like neurology, quantum mechanics, and artificial intelligence. Her latest invention, the Psyche Key, was her most audacious yet, a device that could enter the consciousness of living beings. Not just humans, but any sentient life form. The implications were staggering. With the Psyche Key, Irene could unlock the mysteries of alien civilizations, explore the way they thought, communicated, and experienced reality. The device didn't just allow for observation, it enabled interaction, as if the mind itself were a landscape to be explored. It didn't take long for Irene to assemble a team. She handpicked experts from around the world, a diverse group of neurologists, psychologists, engineers, and explorers. Together, they would form the Mind Exploration Team, or MET for short. Their mission: to travel through space and time, not just physically, but mentally, to connect with the consciousness of alien species and, hopefully, bridge the gaps between civilizations. Their first mission seemed routine. They had discovered the Zothra, an alien species inhabiting the planet Nexaris in the far reaches of the Orion sector. The Zothra were advanced, peaceful, and willing to cooperate with human scientists. They agreed to let Irene's team explore their collective consciousness, a shared mental space that had allowed their species to thrive for millennia. Irene and her team were excited. This was an opportunity to explore an entirely new form of consciousness. They knew the Zothra possessed a kind of hive mind, where individual thoughts and emotions blended into a greater whole. The Zothra's mental world promised to be a complex, intertwined system of memories, emotions, and perceptions, a perfect first test for the Psyche Key. With preparations complete, the team entered the Zothra's consciousness for the first time. Irene activated the device, and the world around them shifted. It was as if they had been transported to another realm, a place where physical boundaries no longer mattered. The Zothra's mind was a vast, abstract landscape, filled with swirling colors, floating symbols, and strange sensations that pulsed through their very being. "This is incredible," whispered Dr. Marcus Ng, one of the team's lead neurologists. "It's like nothing I've ever seen." Irene nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "We're not just observing their thoughts. We're inside them. Every sensation, every memory, it's all here, alive." As the team delved deeper, they began to understand the intricacies of the Zothra's collective consciousness. The species had a way of sharing their experiences, blending individual memories into a cohesive whole. It was a harmonious existence, where conflict was rare, and understanding was universal. But as they continued to explore, something unexpected happened. The vibrant, peaceful landscape of the Zothra's mind began to change. The colors grew darker, the symbols more erratic. And then, they felt it, a presence. Something cold, calculating, and immensely powerful was watching them. "Do you feel that?" asked Ava, the team's lead psychologist, her voice trembling. Irene narrowed her eyes, scanning the mental landscape around them. "Yes, something's not right." Before they could react, the presence made itself known. A wave of mental energy surged toward them, pushing against their consciousness like a tidal wave. The team struggled to resist, but the force was overwhelming. It wasn't just the Zothra's mind they were dealing with, this was something far greater, something far more dangerous. "We need to get out," Irene ordered, her voice sharp. "Now!" With great effort, the team managed to pull themselves back to reality, disconnecting from the Zothra's consciousness. They were shaken, their minds still reeling from the encounter. "What the hell was that?" Marcus asked, his face pale. "I don't know," Irene replied, her voice steady but her mind racing. "But whatever it is, it's not just the Zothra. This is something much bigger." Over the next few days, the team analyzed the data they had gathered from their brief exploration. What they discovered sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The Zothra's collective consciousness was not an isolated phenomenon. It was part of a vast, interconnected mental network that spanned across multiple alien civilizations. And at the center of that network was a powerful alien entity they called the Eclipse. The Eclipse wasn't a being in the traditional sense. It was a consciousness, a vast, malevolent force that sought to control the minds of every sentient species in the galaxy. It had already enslaved countless civilizations, including the Zothra, by infiltrating their minds and bending their will to its own. "We're dealing with a mind virus," Irene explained to her team, her voice grim. "The Eclipse is spreading, corrupting the consciousness of entire species. If we don't stop it, humanity will be next." The team was stunned. They had set out to explore alien minds, but now they found themselves facing a threat that could destroy not just their mission, but the entire galaxy. "We have to fight back," Ava said, her voice filled with determination. "We can't let this thing win." Irene agreed, but the question remained, how? The Eclipse was too powerful to confront directly. Its network spanned light years, and its influence was growing with each passing day. That's when Irene had an idea. The Eclipse was a cold, calculating force, driven by logic and efficiency. It lacked the one thing that made humanity unique: creativity, emotion, and the capacity for abstract thought. "We need to disrupt the network," Irene said, her mind racing with possibilities. "The Eclipse thrives on control and predictability. But if we inject something it can't understand, something unpredictable, like human creativity, it might be enough to destabilize the entire system." The team was skeptical at first. How could something as intangible as creativity stand up to a force as powerful as the Eclipse? But the more they thought about it, the more they realized that Irene might be onto something. Human creativity had always been humanity's greatest strength, its ability to think outside the box, to imagine the impossible, to create art, music, and stories that defied logic and reason. It was a long shot, but it was their only shot. With their plan in place, the team prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They would infiltrate the heart of the Eclipse's network, using the psyche key to travel through the minds of the species it had already enslaved. If they could reach the core of the network, they would inject it with a surge of human creativity, disrupting the Eclipse's control and freeing the minds it had enslaved. The journey was perilous. As they entered the minds of various alien species, they encountered mental landscapes that were both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Each species had been affected by the Eclipse in different ways. Some had become cold and emotionless, their minds stripped of individuality. Others were chaotic and disjointed, their thoughts fractured by the Eclipse's influence. The team faced countless challenges as they navigated these mental worlds. They had to contend with psychic traps, mental projections of their deepest fears, and the constant threat of the Eclipse's presence. But through it all, they relied on each other, and on their humanity. Irene was particularly affected by the journey. As they ventured deeper into the network, she was forced to confront her own inner demons. Memories of her past, of a personal loss she had buried deep within her mind, resurfaced, threatening to overwhelm her. But she knew that she couldn't afford to falter. The fate of the galaxy was at stake. Finally, they reached the core of the Eclipse's network. It was a place of utter darkness, devoid of color, sound, or sensation. The alien presence was suffocating, pressing against their minds with a force that threatened to crush them. "This is it," Irene said, her voice barely audible. "We either win here, or we lose everything." With a deep breath, she activated the final phase of their plan. The team projected their thoughts into the core of the network, flooding it with memories of human creativity. They sent images of art, music, literature, and emotion, things the Eclipse could never comprehend. At first, nothing happened. The darkness remained, oppressive and unyielding. But then, slowly, the network began to change. The Eclipse's control wavered, unable to process the sudden influx of abstract thought. The darkness cracked, and for the first time, Irene felt the presence of the enslaved minds breaking free. The battle was far from easy. The Eclipse fought back with everything it had, trying to reassert its dominance. But it was too late. The seed of human creativity had been planted, and the network was unraveling. As the Eclipse's grip weakened, the enslaved species began to wake up. One by one, their minds were freed, and the alien network collapsed. The team returned to reality, exhausted but victorious. They had done it. The Eclipse's reign of terror was over, but victory came at a cost. The mental strain of the mission had taken its toll, and some members of the team were forever changed by the experience. Irene herself was different, her mind shaped by the battle she had fought within herself. As the galaxy celebrated its newfound freedom, Irene reflected on the journey they had undertaken. They had ventured into the unknown, faced an enemy unlike any they had ever imagined, and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through the power of human creativity. The future of mind exploration was bright, and Irene knew that this was just the beginning. There were still countless mental worlds to explore, mysteries to uncover, and challenges to face. But for now, they had earned a moment of peace. The stars outside the window of the mind exploration team's ship flickered softly, their light barely reaching the distant sector of space they now found themselves in. Irene sat in silence, staring out at the darkness, her mind still grappling with the echoes of their last mission. The Eclipse had been defeated, but the battle had left its mark on her, a scar etched deep within her thoughts. The others were asleep, exhausted from the strain of the journey. Ava had retreated into her quarters, her face pale from the psychic toll. Marcus had tried to talk afterward, to make sense of everything they'd been through, but his words had faltered, and eventually, he too had succumbed to sleep. Irene, though, couldn't rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the core of the Eclipse, that void of darkness pressing against her mind, a presence that seemed to lurk just beneath the surface, as if waiting for a moment of weakness. The quiet hum of the ship's systems filled the air, a reminder that despite the weight of the last mission, life went on. The ship moved steadily through the void, its destination a planet Irene had never heard of before, Kathos 12. It was an unassuming world on the outer edge of the galaxy, far from the central hubs of civilization. It wasn't part of the original plan, but after what they'd been through, the team had been given clearance for a brief respite before their next assignment. But Irene knew this wasn't just about rest. She felt it in her bones. Something was pulling her toward Kathos 12, something beyond her control. The door to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss, and Ava stepped inside, her footsteps barely audible on the metal floor. She gave Irene a tired smile before sitting down in the chair next to her, glancing out at the same stars. "Can't sleep either?" Ava asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Irene shook her head. No. My mind's still buzzing. I can't stop thinking about it. Ava sighed and leaned back in her chair. Me too. I keep seeing it, that place, the way it felt. Like it was alive, breathing. I've never experienced anything like that before. None of us have, Irene replied. And it's over. We did what we came to do. The eclipse is gone. Ava nodded, though her expression was clouded with doubt. You really believe that? That it's over? Irene didn't answer right away. She had to believe it, she needed to. But deep down, the unease hadn't left her. The eclipse had been powerful, its reach vast. Could something like that ever truly be gone? I don't know, Irene admitted finally. But we have to move forward. Ava's eyes remained on the stars. So, what's on Kathos 12? Why there? That's the thing, Irene said. I don't know. We were told it's just a place for us to rest, but I feel like there's more to it. Like we're being drawn there for a reason. Ava frowned. Drawn? I can't explain it. It's like an instinct. Something we haven't seen yet. They sat in silence for a while, letting the stillness of space fill the void between them. The ship's AI chimed softly, announcing their approach to Kathos 12. Irene could see the planet now, a small, pale dot against the backdrop of space. It didn't look like much, a barren rock, devoid of any obvious signs of life. But as they descended toward its surface, she couldn't shake the feeling that something waited for them down there. The landing was smooth, the ship systems handling the descent with mechanical precision. The planet's atmosphere was thin, the landscape stretching out in all directions as far as the eye could see, a desolate, rocky wasteland, with jagged mountains piercing the horizon like the teeth of some ancient creature. Irene, Ava, and Marcus stepped onto the surface, their boots crunching against the rough terrain. The air was cold and dry, though their suits regulated the temperature, keeping the chill at bay. They had landed near a series of caves that jutted out from the side of a cliff, their dark openings looking like the gaping mouths of forgotten giants. This place gives me the creeps, Marcus muttered, scanning the area with his portable scanner. I'm not picking up any life signs. Not even plants. There's something here, Irene said, her voice firm. I don't know what, but we need to check those caves. Ava raised an eyebrow. Caves? Really? I know it sounds crazy, but I'm sure of it. Without waiting for a response, Irene started walking toward the nearest cave, the others following reluctantly behind her. As they approached, the sense of unease grew stronger. There was something about the cave entrance, something that made the hairs on the back of Irene's neck stand on end. It wasn't just the natural fear of the unknown, this felt different, more personal. Inside, the air grew colder, and the light from their helmets cast long, eerie shadows along the walls. The cave was deep, winding down into the planet like some forgotten tunnel. The further they went, the stronger the pull became, as if the very rock beneath their feet was calling out to them. Finally, they reached a large chamber, its walls covered in strange markings, symbols that pulsed faintly with an otherworldly light. Irene stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. This, Marcus whispered, staring at the symbols. This can't be natural. It's not, Irene replied, stepping closer to the wall. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the stone. The symbols flared brighter at her touch, and for a moment, the world seemed to shift around her. In that instant, she was no longer on Kathos 12. She stood in a void a place of nothingness, yet filled with a presence she recognized all too well. The eclipse that it wasn't gone. It had never been gone. You thought you could escape me, a voice whispered, echoing in her mind. You thought you were free. Irene's heart pounded in her chest. No. We are eternal, the voice continued, growing louder. You are but a fleeting thought, a flicker in the dark. But I will remain. The void pulsed around her, and she felt its presence pressing in, suffocating her thoughts. It was stronger than before, more determined, and now it had found her again. You cannot win, it said, its voice dripping with malice. I have seen your weakness, and I will consume you. Panic surged through her, but Irene fought it back. She couldn't let it win. Not now, not after everything they had done. No, she whispered, her voice trembling but defiant. You won't. With all the strength she could muster, Irene forced herself to break free, pulling her mind out of the void and back into the cave. She gasped, stumbling back, her heart racing. Ava and Marcus rushed to her side, their faces filled with concern. What happened? Ava asked, her voice urgent. What did you see? It's still here, Irene said, her voice barely above a whisper. The eclipse. It's not gone. It's waiting. Marcus's face paled. What do you mean, it's waiting? Irene shook her head, her thoughts still spinning. It's rebuilding itself. It found us again. It was never destroyed, not completely. Ava took a step back, her hand instinctively going to her sidearm. So what do we do? How do we stop it? Irene's mind raced. The eclipse had been weakened before, but now it was regaining its strength, preparing for another attempt to consume the galaxy. They couldn't let that happen. We stop it the same way we did before, she said, her voice steadying. With creativity. With the one thing it can't understand. But how? Marcus asked, his voice edged with desperation. We're not connected to its network anymore. Irene glanced back at the glowing symbols on the wall. No. But this place is. It's a conduit, a way for the eclipse to reach out. If we can disrupt it here, we might be able to stop it from fully reforming. Without another word, Irene began tracing her fingers over the symbols, her mind focusing on the memories of what had worked before, images of art, music, emotion, anything that could disrupt the cold, logical mind of the eclipse. Slowly, the symbols began to glow brighter, pulsing with a rhythm that matched the beat of her heart. The presence pushed back, trying to force its way into her thoughts, but Irene was ready this time. She focused, channeling all the creative energy she could summon into the symbols. The room began to shake, the walls trembling as the symbols pulsed faster and faster. A scream echoed through her mind, a sound of pure rage and frustration, and Irene knew the eclipse was fighting to hold on. But it was too late. The creative force she had unleashed was overwhelming, flooding the network with chaos and unpredictability, something the eclipse could never control. And then, with a final pulse of light, the symbols went dark. The cave fell silent. Irene stood there, breathing heavily, her heart still racing. It was over. For now, we did it, Marcus said, his voice filled with relief. Ava nodded, though her expression was still clouded with doubt. But for how long? Irene didn't have an answer. The eclipse had been defeated again, but it wasn't gone. It was a presence that lurked in the shadows of the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to strike. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. As they made their way back to the ship, Irene couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. The stars above seemed to shimmer with a hidden threat, and she knew that somewhere out there, the eclipse was still watching, still waiting. But she also knew one thing for certain: as long as humanity had creativity, as long as they had the capacity to dream and imagine, they would never be truly defeated. They would always find a way to fight back. And so, with the future uncertain but their resolve stronger than ever, the Mind Exploration team prepared for whatever lay ahead.